Hello, Kate Murray and Stevie Nicol here with you. Liverpool have just beaten Newcastle at St James's Park 2-0. It is 3 points for Jurgen Klopp's men. We'll be talking about that game and some of the other big results from the Premier League today. But Stevie, it's 3 points. It's a 2-0 win. How happy are you with Liverpool today?
Well, I think we should go with the positives. A 2-0 victory at flying Newcastle, particularly the way Liverpool have been performing, the results they've been having. So, yeah, the positive is great. Great to see Nunez scoring. What a super goal. Smashing it past Pope and Gakpo getting another one as well. 2-0 after about 20-odd minutes. Absolutely flying and looking great. I should have actually mentioned that Alisson made a big-time save after 3 minutes when Almiron was through, which could have changed the game a little. But he made the save nonetheless. And then for 20 minutes, Liverpool looked, really clinical on the break to go 2-0 up from basically 2 chances. And of course, the game turned on its head with Pope getting sent off. A quick ball up from Alisson from his feet. Mo Salah going through, and Pope somehow tries to head it from his toes and ends up catching it in his hands. And of course, it's a red card. So really, from there, the game, I thought, was over. But from there, Liverpool kind of managed to make it difficult for themselves.
Yeah, they did. Do you think 2-0 is a fair result in the end? Do you think it's a case that it doesn't really tell the story of the game?
No, I think considering what happened before Pope got sent off, I think it's a fair reflection in the end. I guess you got to give credit to Newcastle. Going down to 10 men, they still stuck at it. They still tried to go forward. Liverpool making it easy for them by not taking advantage of that extra man, by keeping the ball and making Newcastle run. They kept coughing it up and giving them opportunities. At 2-0, they did hit the bar as well. But you got to give Newcastle credit, the way they stuck at it. And Liverpool in the second half kind of went about it the way they did the second part of the first half, not keeping the ball as well as they should, not taking advantage of the 10 men. But regardless of that, they kept a clean sheet. And of course, before this game kicked off, if somebody had handed you a 2-0 victory at Newcastle right now, the way things have been going for both sides, Liverpool absolutely would have snatched their hands off.
It sounds, Stevie, like even though you can see the reality of it, obviously it is still, as you said, a win for Liverpool. It sounds as though you might have a little bit of renewed hope about your former team.
I don't know where you're getting that from.
I thought you might have been a bit more down when I started at the top of the show, and I felt that it wasn't quite the reaction I was expecting from you. I feel as though you taking the positives is not something I always see.
Well, I'm trying my best. I'll be honest with you. The truth is, for 22 minutes, I was well pleased. I think what happened after the red card kind of brought us back down to earth to where Liverpool are. The fact that against 10 men, they couldn't put this game away, and they didn't control the game the way they should have. You would expect a Liverpool side to dominate the possession, not give it away. You don't even have to try and score. You just keep the ball, keep the opposition in Newcastle running around, and then you make it easy for yourself. You're saving energy, you're making them expend all their energy. That's what should happen, and it didn't. And so that's kind of why I'm a little unsure, because I expected the game to be dead and buried when Pope sat on the bench, but it didn't happen. And so again, as I said, I started by saying it's a bit of a reality check when Liverpool were playing against 10 men. So that's why I'm a little unsure still, although it's a great result.
All right, they're up to 8th with this result. And when you think of the top 4 race this season, you'd probably say for sure Man City, Arsenal and Manchester United are going to finish there, right?
Yep.
Who's the 4th, really, with what we've seen? Surely Liverpool have to be thinking that they could turn this around and make it.
Well, I think you're right. They're in the realms of could. I certainly don't think they're the favourites. but they're falling into the category of so many sides that are trying to get that fourth spot that they're up and down. You're not sure what you're going to get. One week it's a win, the next week it's a loss, the next week it's a draw. The performances are not what you expect. I mean, there are so many teams that fall into that category after the sides that you mentioned. But yes, they could. And I say they could because the teams above them are as unpredictable as Liverpool are. So, yeah, they're in the running, but I don't think they're favourites.
All right, that definitely is a little bit of renewed hope from Stevie if you are watching us today, because he's not always thought that was going to happen this season. So that could is a nice could from him. Mark Ogden was at the game today. We're going to bring him in now up in my native northeast. Hiya, Mark. Tell us your initial observations then from watching that game. What stood out to you?
Well, Nick Pope being sent off has caused a massive goalkeeping crisis for Newcastle. I don't know how they're going to resolve that, because they've got, obviously, Dubravka is cup side, having played for Man United of all teams in the early rounds. So they're probably going to have Loris Karius in goal, who we all remember him. I'm sure Steve remembers Loris Karius from his last game for Liverpool back in 2018. So unless they can recall Carl Darlow from his loan at Hull, then it looks like Karius in goal. So that is a big takeaway for me from this game, that Newcastle's goalkeeping crisis, and the fact that, for me, I think Newcastle are on the slide. It's 1 winning 7 now. Not so many goals either. And I think Steve's maybe been a little bit harsh on Liverpool. I think they're favourites now for fourth spot, because that win today means they're 6 points behind Newcastle with a game in hand. So they win that, it's 3. And I just think that although Tottenham are still there above Liverpool, look at who Liverpool have got coming back to fitness. Virgil van Dijk played today. Diogo Jota's back. Luis Diaz will be back soon. They've got such attacking options that I just think that from this point on in this season, Liverpool, of the teams that are chasing fourth spot, are the best equipped. So they'll score more goals. They've got that belief. They've got the confidence. They've got the experience. I just think that Liverpool will blow teams away now, because I think they've got the... I know they could have blown this game away, but when you're out of 10 men, the game was done. They've got Real Madrid on Tuesday. Maybe there's an element of just take your foot off the pedal, conserve your energy for Real Madrid. I think Liverpool will finish top 4.
So pick out a few things from Liverpool then. You've already said a few there, Mark, that really did stand out as positive going forward for the rest of the season, not just for the Real Madrid game, but for the Premier League and that chase for the top 4 spots.
Yeah, I just think it's the players coming back to fitness. I mean, not only that, you've got Gakpo and Nunes are now scoring goals and looking like the players that they thought they would be. But, Luis Diaz comes back into the equation soon. Diogo Jota. You're talking about Liverpool have got 5 or 6 forwards that, would walk into any team. And goals win matches. I know it's an old cliche, but they do. And then you've got Virgil van Dijk at the back, who's back playing again. He's not in the best of seasons, but I just think that Liverpool have got all the pieces falling together. Newcastle, to me, where Bruno Guimaraes isn't playing as he didn't today, they've got no creativity. And the people that were playing so well at the start of the season, Almiron certainly missed a great chance early on today. Joe Linton's going to have to pace a little bit. I just think Newcastle look like they're feeling the heat now. They're feeling tired. And with Tottenham, you can't trust Tottenham. So I just think Liverpool, for me, they've got the players back, they've got the confidence back, and it's that stage of the season where Liverpool tend to come good. And one thing that I noticed a couple of days ago, they've got 10 Premier League games in April and May. 10, that's 30 points. All these players fit. I just think Liverpool, for me, I think they're going to cruise into the top 4, to be honest. Mark my words.
Well, yeah, maybe you're a bit more confident than Stevie Nicol is. Just touching on that Nick Pope, obviously, that you mentioned, his red card meaning that he'll miss the Carabao Cup final. It feels a little unfair, doesn't it?
It is unfair, but, it's the jeopardy of football, isn't it? If you get sent off in the game before a major final, then you're going to miss the final. And it was a red card. He stopped a handball outside the penalty area. It's a basic error. I don't know what he was doing, but any goalkeeper knows if you handle the ball outside the penalty area, you're probably going to get sent off. Now, the timing's atrocious, isn't it? Considering that they've got Newcastle's biggest game, this century at Wembley next week. And he would have been a massive part of that. He's been a huge signing for Newcastle this season, Nick Pope, one of England's best goalkeepers, if not the best goalkeeper. So he's out of the equation. And it's been made worse by the fact that Dubravka, who came on today, is cup tied. He played 2 games on loan at Man United. So it's almost like a calamity in one, so that, Loris Karius hasn't played a game for 2 years. He played for Union Berlin in February 2021. He hasn't played a game since then. So what a nightmare for Newcastle. What a nightmare for Karius. Imagine being Loris Karius, knowing that the last time you played in a major final, your career basically hit the buffers. He played for Liverpool against Real Madrid, made 2 mistakes. Yes, he was concussed, but people don't remember the mistakes. The pressure he's going to be under against Man United at Wembley, he might have the best game of his life, and I hope he does to redeem himself. But the pressure is going to be so intense on Karius that it's a killer for Newcastle, that, because Pope is one of their big players.
Now, obviously, you've been travelling, Mark, today, and as we can see, you are at St James's Park, so you've not been able to watch the earlier games today, but you know what's happened, and the fact that Arsenal are back on top. Manchester City, a draw with Nottingham Forest, 1-1 it finished. Does that result, do you think, take the shine off that midweek win over Arsenal for Man City?
Absolutely. I mean, Man City to go to Nottingham Forest, and Forest have had a decent run of form at home in recent weeks, aside from the Carabao Cup semi-final defeat against Man United, but you'd expect City to win this, and the fact they didn't win it and they conceded late on, it means that all that momentum they built up from beating Arsenal has kind of been eroded. And not only that, I mean, Arsenal won that game at Villa in the dying seconds, didn't they? It was that late kind of own goal by Martinez, which was very unfortunate, and then the second goal by Martinelli. But the 4-2 win looks like Arsenal cruised it, but they didn't. It was very, very tight at Villa Park. So, two very late swings in both games have taken the momentum away from Man City and given it back to Arsenal, although I do think that City are still favourites. But it's been a big day in the title race, and it could be even bigger tomorrow if Man United beat Leicester, because all of a sudden, Man United might think they're back in the title race. So I keep saying it's a 2.5 race, 2.5 team race. Maybe it's 2 3/4 team now. Let's see what happens tomorrow.
We've got Stevie Nicol with us. Stevie, obviously, as you can hear, Mark Ogden a lot more positive about Liverpool's top 4 chances right now. A lot more positive than you are, it's fair to say. Just going to the title race in itself, Stevie, we're just talking about the fact that City, with that draw to Nottingham Forest today, it's just really hard to know what's going to happen here. I feel like we just keep seeing these two, obviously Arsenal coming back today in the way that they did. It's really hard to predict how this title race is going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting some strange performances and some strange results. And, the first thing that struck me about Arsenal was, this is why you don't moan and complain and look for excuses, because the game of football will give and take away whenever it's ready. And last week, Arsenal got 2 points taken away. But guess what? This week they were given 2 points. I mean, what's the odds of Jorginho hitting the crossbar, coming down, hitting Martinez in the back of the head and the ball getting in the net? I mean, so you have to roll with it, and things are going to happen throughout the season. And as long as you keep at what you think you need to do, that's what's going to take you through, and that's what's going to take the title to one of these two sides. As far as City's concerned, I mean, you talk about throwing 2 points away. Forest with one shot at goal, pretty much one half-decent attack, and they score a goal. And then, of course, the chances up the other end. Laporte should have scored with a header. And by the way, in my opinion, Laporte has a lot to do with the goal they lost. I think it was Johnson just walked past them inside on the left-hand side. All he's got to do is take him wide. But it was horrendous defending from Laporte, which I'm not surprised about. I don't like him as a centre-back anyway. I think he's lucky to be where he is. But City, yeah, they'll be kicking themselves. But I think what we've seen over the last 2 or 3 weeks is exactly what we're going to get between now and the end of the season. Neither Arsenal nor City look as though they're going to be or put together such a dominating run as City have done over the last few seasons, winning the title. I don't see that happening, which means that we're going to be sat here every weekend talking about what's just happened. How did that happen? Why did it happen? So, listen, for us, it's fantastic. For Arsenal and City, not so good for the heart.
You mentioned those chances at the other end, though, Steve. It was 23 efforts from Man City. Pep Guardiola even having to say afterwards, today, we missed too many clear chances. Is that going to be a problem for them going forwards?
Do you know City have always missed a lot of chances throughout the last, 4 or 5 seasons, 4 wins in the last 5 years, I think it is. But they've actually still scored goals as well, even though they've missed. It just seems that now they're missing and not making up for it. That seems to be the problem this season. When they're not scoring, somebody's not turning around and producing. You think of all the goal scorers have in their side. But right now, certainly at this moment in time, none of them are turning around and getting a goal from nothing.
Mark, the guys on the FC show last night were critical of Mikel Arteta complaining about the schedule. What's been the response in England to this?
I think there's been a bit of support for him, to be honest, because he is right in saying that if you're a Champions League team that plays on a Wednesday, you get the Saturday morning slot off. So, it is a bit odd that Arsenal played Wednesday night, but they're not in the Champions League, but they play Saturday morning. So, but, I've got to say that all the teams that have won the Premier League title over the last 20 years have had to deal with that. They've had to deal with playing away on a Wednesday, coming back and playing on a Saturday morning. It is all part of the kind of that unique element of winning the Premier League. You have to overcome a lot of different challenges, you know, the weather, the pitches, the games at Christmas, the derby games, all this nonsense. This is just part of it. So he won't be complaining now, will he? They've won 4-2 and they've shown their resilience. So it could turn into a positive, saying that, you know, we played Wednesday night, we've won Saturday morning. So it's a positive now. But yeah, I can understand his point, but you have to overcome these things. That is the reality of managing the Premier League.
Stevie, I know you might poo-poo me for saying this actually. Is the manner of getting back to winning ways for Arsenal actually a good thing for them? The fact that they had to fight back and it felt like it was against adversity for them right now, is that going to be helpful for them going forward on this run of games that they've got, which on paper we know look more favourable for them?
It just gives you a boost. It gives you a boost. It's when you win the way you do, and it just gives you a boost. You know, listen, if you go and win 5-0, you don't get quite the adrenaline boost, but psychologically you get it somewhere else. You know what I mean? So it depends how you. It just depends how you use it. I think Ogden was alluding to that. It's how you deal with it, how you use all the positives, and how you fight against the negatives. And the fact that you win a game late never does morale any harm whatsoever. As I said, from the coach's point of view, you'd rather win 5-0, easy peasy, and then the confidence keeps growing and you do it that way. But yeah, to win in the last kick of the game, pretty much, certainly in injury time, for the third goal is just, it gets everybody going.
What do you think Pep will have thought about that result today then, Mark? He's going to be annoyed, isn't he?
He'll be furious. I mean, he was furious towards the end of the game, wasn't he, when he started having a row with the referee. So, you know, Pep knows that his team isn't playing well at the moment. They're dropping a lot of points and they're not being very convincing. They haven't been convincing really since the World Cup. So he'll be concerned, but he's got plenty of options to change it, and he does change it. So there's just something not right in Man City. I mean, you know, the whole João Cancelo thing when he went to Bayern Munich, the fact that he doesn't play Foden very often, the Kyle Walker, all these players. I think Pep's struggling to get the balance right this season, and it is giving everybody else a chance. Whether the World Cup's had an impact as well, the kind of disjointed nature of the season, but there is something odd about City this year. They're not as convincing as they have been. So it may be that Pep's message isn't getting through as it used to do. I think we've spoken about this in recent weeks, that sometimes when a manager's been there too long and the players have been there too long, that they're sick of hearing the same message, especially if they've had success there and they are no longer the rookies who don't know how to win. They all know how to win now. And Pep maybe is a little bit too much like the headmaster at times. And I think another significant thing as well is that he no longer has a Mikel Arteta or a Juan Milillo, or these assistant managers that can basically say to Pep, no, just calm down a bit, do it this way, do it that way. There's nobody to put the handbrake on him. So whether that is an issue as well, it just seems that City needs something to click it all back together again and bring some harmony back, because these results, like dropping points at Nottingham Forest, are a sign that it's not all right.
You know, I think the biggest problem they have is they are not dominating teams. And the reason I think they're not dominating teams the way they used to is because they're not defending well enough behind the ball. And I've spoken about that over the last couple of weeks. And when I say defending behind the ball, there's two things that happen with that. One is clearly when the opposition get out, then your back four have to defend. And they haven't been able to do that. But when Man City were dominating teams, the midfield weren't letting the opposition get to the back four. So there's two different types of defending behind the ball. And I think what we're seeing this year is that the midfield aren't dominating as much as they had previously. And so the back four's got more to do. And of course, that encourages the opposition. You know, when City were at their best and the opposition couldn't breathe, then you crumble under the pressure. But teams aren't crumbling under the pressure because they keep giving them a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel in regards to not taking the chances, and then of course letting them have little tidbits and little opportunities. And then you see today, Forest just stick at it and they give them an opportunity and with one shot at goal and they score. So I think that is the biggest problem. I think if they were to get back to dominating sides and keeping them in their own half and in their own penalty box, then they would start scoring more goals. Yes, they're still making opportunities, but not taking them. but they would get even more opportunities.
You know, I think a big problem with Haaland is that as a centre forward, the ball doesn't stick with him. So when he's not scoring goals, he doesn't really contribute enough for me. I don't think when he's got his back to play, he can't hold the ball up. It bounces off him a little bit. So, you know, Stevie will know that the best at this was Ian Rush back in the 80s. He was the best defender in the league because he defended from the front, and Haaland doesn't do that. Haaland doesn't press. He doesn't defend from the front as he should do. And when he's asked to kind of play with his back to goal, he doesn't like that physical kind of confrontation with the centre half. So the ball keeps going back to the midfielders, and the control that they've used to having isn't there because they're not used to, you know, ping ponging between the defence and the attack as it is with Haaland. Now Haaland's a brilliant goal scorer, but I think he's more of a kind of an old school kind of Gary Lineker, Michael Owen type who doesn't offer much more to the team than his goals. When he's not scoring goals, he kind of creates a problem for the team because he doesn't allow the team to control the ball. Harry Kane would have been a much better signing for Man City because he does all that stuff that Haaland doesn't do. He can hold the ball up, he can bring teammates into play, he can pass to teammates, he can play 1-2s, he can create assists. Haaland doesn't do any of that, but he scores lots of goals. So you have to balance it up by saying, are the goals that he's scoring worth losing the other elements of the game, which sometimes makes the team, you know, less good as they were last season.
A couple of things here, Stevie. First of all, what you think of what Mark just said there about Haaland and his fit at Manchester City, and the fact that it is 1 goal in 5 for him now. Is it an issue when he doesn't score for the team?
I kind of agree with Oggy, to be honest. It's an issue for Haaland more than the team, because I think he's right. You know, he's there to score goals, and other than you know, we've been speaking about not getting the ball in behind the opposition for him enough or early enough. So after putting the ball in behind for him to run onto and him putting the ball in the net, I think Oggie's right. You know, his contribution is, you know, you almost feel as though when he comes short, he's doing it just so he can get a touch, just to show everybody he's actually still there, because he's not as Oggie said. That's not his forte. So. But you know what? Are you really not going to have him? It probably sounds strange to some people that we're saying this. The fact that it's true, but the fact is, when somebody scores the amount of goals he does, then you have to figure a way out. That's the coach's job. It's different with Haaland, but that's the coach's job. And certainly, if you're a City fan, I don't think any of them are wishing they didn't have him. That's for sure.
Yeah, I bet Chelsea are wishing that they did have him. They've only scored twice in their last 6 games. They're 10th right now. They're 10 points off the top 4. Is this a new low for Graham Potter's Chelsea, losing to bottom of the table Southampton, Mark?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a disastrous result for Potter. And I know that the owners have said he's safe. Well, you know, in the weeks leading up to it, they said he's safe. But this is a real test, isn't it? You lose at home to the bottom team. And the fans have already started to turn on Potter a little bit. They don't like his football. They don't like his... He's very downbeat. He's not, you know, if you manage a top club like that, you have to talk it up. You have to be very kind of, you know, positive. And he isn't. But I think when you're not scoring the goals like that and you look at the attacking options he's got, it has to be down to him, really, and his tactics and his selection, because they've got some world-class talent. They've got, you know, people like João Felix, Kai Havertz, you know, Mudrik's a good player. They've got Mason Mount. But they're not scoring goals. So there must be a reason for that. And is the coach putting the handbrake on? Players tend to, you know, play to their coach's tactics, even if they disagree with them. But whatever reason, it's not working at Chelsea. And I think that if they kept Thomas Tuchel, they're much higher up the table than they are now. Potter's way, this isn't working, is it?
Is he in trouble, Stevie? I know they say he's not, but do you think he is?
Shouldn't he? Well, he is. If you lose to the bottom team, who everybody pretty much has already said is going down, and then you look at what's been going on previous to that, any manager is going to be in trouble. And I agree with Oggy. I don't think the kind of bland way he talks helps him any. You know, even if he was a Conte, you know, Conte's always down. There's always a problem, but at least there's something there to cling on to try and back him up, even to tell him to stop being so miserable. But with Potter, he doesn't help himself engage with the supporters, and so when you're doing this badly, you shouldn't be surprised when they turn against you. So listen, is he in trouble? Yes, he is, but he shouldn't be. You know, I think we said it on the show. You can't throw 20 odd new players at a manager and then expect it just to work. And particularly when you throw at a manager what he doesn't need. You know, he doesn't need any more wide attacking players. He needs a goal scorer, a centre forward who can put the ball in the net. They've been crying out for it before they started signing anybody. They've been crying out for it, but yet they go and sign player after player that they already have. So, is he in trouble? Yes, he is. Should he be? No, he shouldn't.
I don't think the players have any kind of fear, or I wouldn't say respect. They probably respect him, but I don't think there's any kind of sense that the players think that he's the boss. I think they feel that he's probably a guy that's been brought in by the owners. And you know, when you look at players and they look at the touchline to a Conte or a Guardiola or a Ten Hag, they know who the boss is, a Klopp. You just know he's in control. With Graham Potter, you look at him, you think you're not in control. The guy above you is in control. And when you go back into the dressing room after a defeat, I can't imagine Graham Potter peeling the paint off the walls. I'm not saying he should, but you can imagine that the managers I've mentioned doing that and players worried about what the manager does. With Graham Potter, you can imagine the players just shrug their shoulders, thinking, oh, well, you know, what's he going to say? He's just going to shrug his shoulders and just like say, oh, I'll try better next time, boys, because that seems to be his approach. And that approach doesn't motivate players, not at that level.
You know, at a football club, certainly the top teams and the top clubs, whenever the manager appears round the corner, people like Fergie and Dalglish and others, when they come round the corner, everybody does that. Everybody stands at attention, keeps the trap shut, almost like a naughty schoolboy. That's what happens with the top guys. I'm with Oggy again. I'm going to have to stop doing this, Oggy. I keep agreeing.
Sorry, mate.
I mean,
like a double act too, sorry.
You start talking some rubbish for a change.
No, we'll take it. It doesn't have to be a debate, you know. It's interesting, especially when you're both on the same page with it.
I just don't see that happening when Potter comes round the corner. I think everybody goes, hi, boss, just walks on. Whereas, as I said, the guys like Fergie and Kenny, everybody's like, attention. Yeah, I think that's a problem.
And obviously, it's a different situation for both of them, Mark. But given that you'll be looking at what else is going on in the Premier League, do you think it has hurt him that someone like Erik Ten Hag, we've all seen, has been able to crack that whip and been able to really establish his authority, that Chelsea's bosses might be looking, going, this is what we need?
Yeah, but I don't know if there's any kind of self-awareness of the Chelsea's bosses, whether they're actually prepared to look at themselves and think that I've made a mistake here. I think there's an element of learning on the job with people like Todd Bowley, and I don't know why you appointed Potter in the first place. For me, there's a kind of a bit of a reminiscence of David Moyes at Man United here. Although David Moyes had earned the job probably more than Graham Potter, that you've got a dressing room full of winners, absolute winners who know what it takes to win a Champions League, win a World Cup, win a Premier League, and they've not only got a manager who hasn't done any of that, they've got a coaching staff who all came from Brighton. Now, if you're Thiago Silva or you're people like N'Golo Kante or all these big players at Chelsea who've won things, you're looking around thinking, how can this guy make me better? What has he got to say to me? What has his coach got to say to me? So I think the owners at Chelsea have made the big mistake, not Potter. Potter could never turn this down, but he's just not equipped for the job. It's too big a jump from Brighton to Chelsea. You know, Brighton to West Ham or Brighton to Everton. It's too big a jump. You can't go from a club like Brighton, who's never played in Europe, that sort of thing, to Chelsea. Chelsea are one of the world's biggest clubs, a Champions League winner. The owners made a mistake. Their naivety and lack of experience has cost them this situation.
So it's another 1-0 loss for them. After the 1-0 loss to Dortmund in the Champions League, there was still a sense from many who follow Chelsea that there were a lot of positives still to be taken there, that it wasn't such a bad result in the end, the fact that it had to go away as well there. But this obviously brings them bouncing right back down to earth. Now they've got Tottenham away, then they're at home to Leeds, and then it's that second leg against Dortmund. What does a Champions League exit mean for Potter, Stevie?
It just pushes them closer to the door. Is what it does. I mean, personally, I thought they were a better side than Dortmund. But as we've been saying, they don't have anybody to score a goal. And it doesn't really matter how good you play. If you can't score a goal, you ain't going anywhere. And you certainly ain't beating Dortmund because you're 1 down already. So, yeah, I mean, he doesn't need to play Spurs next, that's for sure. Maybe Leeds might be the game where clearly they're going to have chances because everybody gets chances against Leeds. So I'm sure they don't mind that one, but I'm sure he's not looking forward to Spurs next.
Stevie, can I just ask you a question? Just
Sure.
quickly, Kate. So he left Aubameyang out of the Champions League squad. Now he's the only goal scorer he's got in the squad, and I know there've been issues with Aubameyang and can he trust him? But he left Aubameyang out and picked Pulisic, who's not going to be fit till April. So would you have taken Aubameyang just because he can score goals and the fact that at least he's there? He might be a problem, but he's a goal scorer. Or do you think he was right to leave him out and pick a player that isn't going to be fit for 6 weeks?
I think as a coach, it really boils down to a simple fact. If you have got other players who are scoring goals, you can afford to leave a guy like Aubameyang out to make a point to the rest of the team, to prove that you're the boss. All of those reasons. When you cannot buy a goal, you can't, and when you don't have somebody who is a centre forward, sometimes you've got to swallow your pride and you've got to pick the guy. Because as much as Aubameyang can stand around and do nothing for a long period of time, he could get you a goal. And they don't have anybody that looks as though they can get them a goal. So, yeah, absolutely. Putting somebody like Pulisic in who when you play him, you're not playing him because you think he's going to score a goal for you. Put it that way. You know, you're not picking Pulisic to score a goal. You're picking Pulisic to assist and get in behind from the wide areas and set somebody up. So when you don't have anybody to score a goal and you have Aubameyang, whatever you think of him at the time, you got to put him in the squad.
Mark, it sounds like that's something that you both agree on. Again, you would have put him in the squad too, right?
Oh no, Stevie's talking nonsense. I just teed him up there to. No, yeah, I mean, because they've got 101 wingers and forwards like Pulisic. He's just another shade of grey. So yeah, Aubameyang's different. So you pick him anyway, but just a bad decision.
Well, listen, thanks for joining us. You've just witnessed live that stepbrothers moment here on ESPNFC where Mark Ogden and Stevie Nicol just became best friends. Make sure to join us tomorrow after Spurs and West Ham. We'll be looking back on what happens between Manchester United and Leicester as well. See you then.